everyone. It's approximately 5 p.m. on Tuesday, April 13th, 2021. And I would like to call to order a public hearing regarding a dangerous property condition at 2046 Second Avenue. Mr. Brown, could we please have a roll call?
Yes. Ms. Davis?
Present.
Mr. Honlaw?
Present.
Mr. Burning?
Present.
All the trustees are present.
I would like to note that our Law Director, Laura Abrams, Township Administrator, Chris Gilbert, Director of Infrastructure and Development, Mike Gould, Director of Administrative Services, Kathleen Kennedy, and Fire Chief Rob Leininger are also in attendance. The order of this public hearing is as follows. We will begin with the opening statements from the Township and the property owner or their representative. Both parties may present their witnesses with an opportunity provided for both sides to cross-examine witnesses, and then there will be closing arguments. Once both parties have presented their cases, the board will either immediately conduct its deliberation and render its decision, or take the matter under consideration for a decision at a later time. Is there anyone in attendance representing the property owner?
Yes, my name is Malachi Union. I'm a representative of the property owner, a Lad Dulos Jr., and I am also a representative of Earth Green General Contracting and Property Management, a licensed state contractor and registered with the city of Cincinnati.
And your address, sir?
My address, yes, 3834 Iverius, Iverius Avenue, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45206.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Which one step to the podium, Mr. Burns? Would you like him to step to the podium?
Doesn't matter. I got his name and address. Okay, Miss Abrams, may we please have your opening statement?
Sure. Before we do, sir, what was your last name?
Gilliam, Gilliam.
All right, and what's your relationship to the property owner?
He's my nephew, and I've also been contracted through him in order to refurbish the property.
Okay. Did he provide the township anything in writing saying that Mr. Gilliam was his representative? Do you have?
Nothing in writing, but I met with the fire chief and several times at the property location with Mr. DuBose.
All right. Mr. Burning, that's technically not permitted. If you have a representative who's not a lawyer, you have to have something in writing. But I'm willing to let that be as long as we have something in writing after the hearing today, if that's okay with the board.
That is okay. Can you get something in writing from Mr. DeBoe, please?
I can't get it at this.
I don't mean tonight. I mean,
Yes,
can
yes,
you
sir.
get,
Oh,
okay.
Of course.
Yeah, we just need to make sure that
Of course.
he authorized
He's
you.
here represented and it's legal, and I
Yeah.
am here speaking on his behalf, which is understandable.
All right. On that basis, I'm fine with Mr. Gilliam representing the case. Obviously, if it comes back he wasn't authorized, then we have to deal with that. But I'd be willing to proceed if the board is willing to proceed.
Thank you.
All right. All right, by way of a opening statement, the board is aware of this property. It's 2046 Second Avenue. We've been dealing with this property for quite some time. It was declared uninhabitable on March 1st of this year. The board then went through its typical proceedings, did the title search. It was declared dangerous initially on March 9th of 21. We then send the letters out. We post the property, and we'll go through all of this in testimony, but as the board is aware, this is subject to the resolution where we already declared it dangerous and established this hearing. This property is, the board has seen it, it's incredibly problematic, and we will present evidence as to why that property should be demolished as being insecure and unsafe and uninhabitable.
And clearly structurally defective.
And clearly structurally defective. Thank you. And that's all we have as far as opening statement.
Mr. Gilliam, can you come up to the podium and give us an opening statement and representative of the property owner?
Yes. Since the owner has actually owned the property for the last 2.5 to 3 years. Upon purchasing the property, we've called in to Springfield Township and spoke with the personnel in the reception office. They explained to us that they didn't have a building department, and our initial intentions was to put everything back in the same order that the house was. So we explained to them, as long as we were replacing the exact size lumber in the same place and the configuration of the building did not change, there was not a permit necessary, but just keep in contact with the administration department of Springfield Township and do an inspection with Captain Mike. Once, repairs have been made, we obtained electrical permit, and it seemed very unusual that there was no building department, but we've been in contact since day one of the repairs have started. When the property was first purchased, it was an eyesore. There was yard debris, overgrown vegetation. The house was a shelter for rodents of every type. So once we started the demolition process, all of the furniture was removed, everything that was left behind by the previous owner, all rubbish, debris. We cut all the overgrown vegetation down. The reason the house looks the way it looks now, we removed the aluminum siding, and that's when the problem really started. We had a couple of neighbors down the street really stop and complain. They were under the assumption that the crew was just salvaging the siding for resale. Within 5 houses in each direction, I've spoke with the neighbors personally, and they look forward to the restoration of this specific project. Since I've been in constantly contact with the administration department of Springfield Township. Every time there was a violation, I've called back in a timely manner, resolved the problem. So at this point, we've had a structural engineer with the architect firm of Bernard Fields. He's a licensed architect for the state of Ohio. He's drawing up plans to renovate the home. So we've signed a contract with him, and we have a contract. His proposed time is 60 days to have us a drawing to present to the county and Springfield Township, because we have to have zoning sign off. So once I have my approved plans, or from the architect with his seal on them, I'll bring them back in, let them sign off, then I'll take them to Court Street, which is the county building department, and they'll issue me a permit. Once the permit is issued, within 60 days, I should have the building closed up with a protective wrap on the exterior of the house, because we're going to apply vinyl siding. So it'll be a Trevec wrap, and it'll make the house look 100%, better. So right now, the siding was removed in order to repair the damaged wood siding. But the house has been standing in this shape. The siding was just on it for years and years. Some people say 6, 7 years this house has been in that shape, unoccupied.
So you have an architect, and he's not going to give you plans for 60 more days to?
Well, it's just the busy time of season for him, and it takes him that long to get the plans and everything together.
So in the meantime, are you going to structurally do anything to the property?
Yes, we've reinforced it with structural bracing and everything. And if once I talk with the fire department here, because they actually put the condemned order. When it's a condemned order, you can't physically go to the building and do any work. So once the condemned order was placed, our hammers were stopped in motion. But since then, I've came out and barricaded the back of the building off, put more support jacks and things of that nature.
I'm just a little concerned, and I don't know about the rest of the board, that it's going to stand like it is for another 60 days before anything else is done to it.
Yes, I can, with permission, I can reinforce the bracing on the building. That's no problem, but I would just need the permission of the, Springfield Township.
Ms. Abrams?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Out loud. You've had it 2.5 years. When did you start working on it?
2.5 years. It's been progress on it. Probably first we cleared the building. There was so much debris.
I understand, but 2.5 years, and I mean, it's basically, I don't know, doesn't look like it's livable. I mean, how much longer are you talking? If it took 2.5 years to get it to this, how much longer until it's ready to be occupied?
Well,
I mean, are we looking at another 2.5 years?
No,
We're looking
no,
at
of course
6
not.
months? We're looking at 3 months?
no, within 6 months.
Okay, that was the question.
Yes, sir.
And so you initially stated that you all were starting a demolition process when you
Yes.
first purchased the home.
Yes.
So what changed, why did you change from a demolition process to trying to
I mean, as
restore?
far as the interior, demolishing the interior, when it's a contractual term referred to a contractors, the first stage of a renovation is demolition. So I would
Okay.
come in, remove the old drywall and any, materials that's in the house, old HVAC systems, old plumbing system, that's the demolition.
Okay,
Not the demolition of the structure
Okay.
itself.
all right, thank you.
All right, Mr. Gilliam, if you wouldn't mind sitting down, we're going to have the witnesses present the evidence as to the condition of the house. Why don't you sit up front here? That way you'll hear better, and you get to ask them questions as well, so that it's kind of like a mini trial, so you'll be able to ask them questions as well. For the township, Kathleen, do you also want to testify? All right, if I could have Mike Gould and Rob Leininger swear in. And you know what, we might as well swear you in at the same time, that's why everybody's sworn in. Just say "I do" after I say the hard stuff. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. Beautiful. All right, everyone is sworn in. We're going to have the fire chief provide information first. Rob Leininger, were you responsible for reviewing this property at various points?
Yes, Ms. Abrams, it was.
I have a report from March 3rd of 2021. Do you have that in front of you?
Yes, I do.
If you could just, without reading it to the board, if you wouldn't mind stating what you found in that report.
Certainly. Mike Stein, who is Captain Stein in charge of the Code Enforcement Division, actually brought this property to my attention numerous times and kept me up to date on the concern about this property. I wanted to see it for myself, so Mike Stein and I went out and visited the property actually on March the 2nd. At that time, I found the property, in my opinion, to be structurally defective. Aesthetically, it looks rough. It's over a 100-year-old building. But my main concern is really the structural integrity of the building. The contractor in front of me here explained the progress that he had been making. He had placed additional reinforcement under the structure, some scissor jacks and so on. But at that time, if you refer to the photographs, this building actually is leaning and appears to be shifting. And so really the integrity of the structure itself was really in question. And that's my main concern, is could there be a potential collapse? The other concern that I had at that point, as you can also see in the photograph, is that this property was not secured. It's open on the north side of the building, as well as the west side of the building. The siding had been removed, and you can see right into the structure, exposing the floor joists and also the structural members of the building. So in my opinion, it's also an attractive nuisance for kids in that area. If they would get in there and play, there is a possibility of a structural collapse, as well as all interior finishes are exposed. As the gentleman explained, there was demolition previously, and it is a very rough structure as the photographs show. Drywall has been removed, all electric, all plumbing, so there are a lot of interior finishes that are dangerous to anybody that would enter that property. So with that in mind, I then came back and made a recommendation, typed up the report, made a recommendation to the board that they consider this property unsafe. It's uninhabitable in my opinion. It is unsafe in my opinion. The structural integrity is also in question in my opinion, and it's uninhabitable also in my opinion.
Did you have an opportunity to look at the property today?
Yes, Ms. Abrams, I did. Actually, I went out there with Kathleen Kennedy as well, and I also attached also have a photograph as well.
Could you give your copy to Mr. Gilman?
Certainly.
I'll give you mine.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Does that photo represent how the property looks today?
It does, yes. And I took the photograph at 9:45 a.m. There is one correction, although I just noticed that this says that I re-inspected the property on April the 12th. It should read April the 13th, so if you would make that correction.
All right. So I mean, obviously the picture looks problematic. What are you seeing today that you didn't see in the prior visits? Is it better? Is it significantly improved?
Well, really what I found out, there's been very little change. As this gentleman reflected, he said there hasn't been really any activity really in the past 30 days. One of the things that he has done, he has put up some barricades in the back to limit access. They are not permanent barricades by any means. They're probably 4 by 8 sheets of plywood that have been propped up. So
Are they easy?
access,
Can they be removed pretty, I mean, you say they're propped up, are they secured?
in my opinion, they are not.
So they could be easily moved?
Yes, they can.
Okay. So can anybody get into this site, that your kids, adults?
Yes.
All right, and it looks like it's significantly leaning. Do you think it's leaning more than it was, or the same?
I would say it's the same. I mean, the same concerns are still there.
How far is
I'm going to say
it?
it's out of plumb. I have to give you a particular degrees. It's out by 30 degrees or 20 degrees. It's leaning.
Is it in danger of, if it were to fall, to hurt anything on other property lines, or is it got a secure?
No, it's clear. It's clear.
It will clear. It will fall on his property
If it
only?
would fall, it would fall on his property, or the owner's property, and the likelihood for additional property damage is minimal.
Just the damage to them and anyone that's under it at the time?
Yeah, it's more of a risk to human safety.
All right. Based on what you saw today and what you saw previously, do you still believe that this property is a dangerous property that requires demolition and removal?
Yes.
All right, so you're allowed to ask the fire chief any questions that you would have, if you have any. You don't have to, but if you have.
Well, I really don't have any questions, but I would just like to state a few things.
Well, let's let you do that when you get an entire time to say whatever you want.
Yes, I mean, he
So-
answered my question.
Okay, all right. I have no further questions of the fire chief, so I'll ask Mr. Gould to testify next. Why don't you tell us what experience you've had with this property?
My first time visiting the property, I believe, was on or about March 24th. When we met with Malachi, the fire chief, and Captain Stein and I. Our purpose for being out there was to educate Mr. Gilman on the process, the fact that the structure had been declared a dangerous property, and that the hearing was going to commence today. and that he needed to quickly take action on making the property secure, safe, and remove all liabilities. At that point, Rob and I, Chief Leininger and I, took a look at all the issues that he outlined. I agree with everything that he has documented previous to this, and we move forward. That's been my only experience at the property.
And what types of things for remediation of the property and to make it safe did you discuss with them on the 24th?
All the requirements that would need to be met in order to acquire a building permit with Hamilton County. The structural engineering, the design, certifications, all those things.
And when you looked at the property, were you concerned about its structural integrity as well?
It's structurally effective. Yes,
Do you think it's at risk of falling over?
I do.
In the short term or in the long term?
Short term.
All right, any other impressions of the building that you have?
No, simply it's unsafe.
All right. Sir, you can ask Mr. Gould questions if you have questions for him as well.
Did you also state to me that in order to comply with the Springfield Township, that we should obtain an architect and an engineer to assess the building?
Yes, I educated you on the fact that you would need to get that in order to get a building permit. Yes, just in case you weren't aware of that step. Yes.
Yes. So we followed these procedures. We submitted documentation from our architect. So we're at the point now, waiting on our architect to give us a set of drawings which we can apply for a permit to stabilize the building up and, make the building structurally safe.
What-
The building is not going to fall anytime.
What I understand, and I apologize for interjecting, is based on my knowledge and both speaking to you tonight as well as speaking to staff, is that what you've submitted is a contract that you've executed with an engineering firm, not a report by an engineer certifying that the property is structurally sound. We do not have that report. I think what Mr. Gould was referring to is, in order to make sure your property isn't declared dangerous and demolished, you must provide something to us from an engineering firm indicating that the property is not structurally defective. You've not done that yet. You've simply provided us with the documentation that you've contracted with an engineering firm to potentially give you that report, which we do not have, nor do you, correct?
Well, he's actually drawing me plans for the building as we speak.
Okay, but I think in order to become in compliance, just not to be confused, what Mr. Gould is referring to is, in order to be in compliance, the property has to be structurally sound and/or a report from an engineer certifying that it's structurally sound, which we do not have. So at this point in time, you haven't complied entirely. You've taken steps to comply, but compliance hasn't been met yet.
Yes, the plans will not be fully met until we have a set of full drawings.
Sure. Well, not even then.
Yes, then we have a set of full drawings to move forward with.
Right.
So basically, Chief, there's nothing they can do to structurally make the building sound until, assuming the architect gave that, he told him it'd be 60 days before he has a plan. He can't really do anything until 60 days from now, is that correct?
I mean, what I had asked for originally was for him to consult an engineer and have an engineer come in and tell us whether or not the structural integrity of that building is sound. The question I have now, I'm going to disclaimer here, I'm not an engineer, but I've been through bird training and I understand, I'm trained in structural collapse, so I know the structural members of a building and so on. And the temporary shoring that has been placed is temporary. And I can tell you that the distribution of those support beams and columns, in my opinion, may not be adequate to support that structure.
Well, they're supporting a temporary back part of it. They're not supporting the entire structure. One part of the structure is still intact. The back end of the structure, where the back wall was deteriorated, that's the only part that's supported.
Let me ask this, and I apologize.
That's all right.
And I know we're sort of going off the rails here
We are.
slightly.
Sorry.
But I understand that it's going to be 60 days before your architect and or engineer, I'm not sure if it's both or one or the other. Those are two distinctly different sort of technical professions. It's going to be 60 days for him to provide you with drawings in order for you to go by in order to rebuild the structure. I'm assuming that this engineer could provide you with a more immediate assessment of the structural integrity of the building and or the supports you're using to supposedly shore up the building. I don't think that should take 60 days.
No, sir.
Is that something that you can get relatively quickly?
Yes. And if they didn't mind, if the Springfield Township Board of Trustees don't mind, I will go out there and make the barricade better. But I didn't want to seem like we were actually physically working on the building. So I screwed sheets of half-inch plywood around the open perimeter. I can even put more bracing if you were thinking it might fall. That's no problem. But I just have to, once they said, it says no work on it. So,
right.
But with the permission, I can re-support it and I'm willing to do anything that it takes to make everybody happy. So if it's allowable, I can put more supports. Right now, I have 6 supports up under the house that are mechanically aluminum. Each one is rated for 3,500 pounds. Plus, I have 6x6 and 4x4 also up under there supporting the back here. And that's more weight. If the house was in perfect condition, there would have been a 2x4 wall, 16 foot long, 16 inches on center, and that would have been supporting that back end of the house.
Looking at this, if I could just say something, looking at this picture, I think the problem maybe is not so much and I'm not an engineer, but it's more like the lateral support to this thing. It looks like the whole thing might go sideways down, it's not going to fall straight down.
Right.
But
the side that actually is leaning, we have supports at an angle still.
I saw some there. I don't know if there's enough or not, but here's what, kind of echoing on Mr. Gilbert, we're not trying to, we have a duty under the law to demolish dangerous, unsafe structures, but what we're not looking to penalize anybody. But I think what we need, if this is going to take 60 days for you to be able to get full plans to move forward, in the meanwhile, we need your engineer, architect to come up with a temporary shoring plan to make this thing safe in the interim to finish that process. That would seem to me that would be the first thing, and that would be something that needs to be, like, quickly. You need to get back with our chief so that we can get that dealt with. And then at the same time, we need to secure the perimeter of the property so that our big concern is that kids or somebody goes into this thing and it falls and somebody gets killed. And so or hurt. And so we want to make sure that the property is secure from people getting in, and then likewise that it's braced, that we have some kind of report from an expert saying this is what it takes to temporarily shore this thing up till I can get my final plans. But then even once you get this, then the pace on this is going to have to pick up. We can't say, well, this has been, I know that it hasn't been like this for 2.5 years, but it's going to have to rapidly then move forward to get to a place where it is it's contained, it's shored up, build up, and encapsulate it like you were saying you want to do. So, I mean, I'm not opposed to giving them an opportunity to do that, but we have to pick up the pace here. This needs to be, we can't let it go on like this. No. Yeah.
So I think we're all in agreement. We
Let's,
don't want it to be a dangerous property. And to have that happen, the architect's going to have to say, here's what needs to happen so that it's not a dangerous property.
The engineer actually works with the architect, and for him,
But that needs to happen quickly is
the
what we,
architect wouldn't take on the job until the engineer came out, and his engineer actually physically came to the location and told him that the building.
and what we're saying is that needs to happen like very quickly. Our goal is not to tear down the house. That's not what we're trying to do here, but we have a responsibility, if it's an unsafe structure, to do just that. So either it needs to be made structurally sound to where it passes an inspection that it's not going to fall down, or we are going to have to tear it down. Would you agree, Ms. Abrams?
I would. Mr. Gillum, has the architectural engineer actually looked at this property? Has he gone on site?
Yes, he came out to the site.
And did he indicate to you he thought he could make it safe?
Yes, ma'am.
I assume he didn't indicate to you that it was safe currently.
Yes, it's in no, it's not gonna fall anytime soon. Only we just had a windstorm last week or a couple of weeks ago when the winds were 70 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour, almost a tornado wind, and the house didn't fall
So
down.
is your engineer in a position to put that in writing? And how soon will that be?
Yes, I'll get an engineer, I'll have him put it in writing, that's no problem. I'll have him put that in writing. And in the meanwhile, we'll go out there and I'll go out there and board the house up and make sure, I'll put 2x4s in back of those pieces of plywood and raise them up another level. Would that be?
Well, the board stated very clearly what their concern is if someone can fix a property, they're happy to have someone fix a property. But it has to be safe in the interim, and right now this, in our opinion, is not safe. You obviously disagree with that, but we believe that it's dangerous as it is today. So what the board will typically do in those situations is go ahead and have it declared dangerous as of today. You will get 30 days under the law to correct some issues. The board, during that time, can reconsider if they're provided sufficient information to do that. And what I'm hearing from the board is that they'd be willing to consider doing that if you have an engineering report saying it's safe currently, if you render it safe and secure currently, if you make it so, the unwitting person can't wander in there and get harmed, so secure it more sufficiently than it is now, and that you get the permits in a quick fashion. Just getting the permits doesn't do us any good. That doesn't solve any problem. You could sit there with the permits for a year and nothing would be done. And frankly, we'll be here again. You want some assurance from us that we're not destroying it either. So you need to get, the first step here is going to be getting a structural engineer to say that it's safe as it is and that it can be made safe going forward, or whatever needs to be done needs to be done. So we're going to need that in writing. In the short term, or they'll have to demolish it. In my opinion, it's up to the board with what they do. But this is one of the worst structures we've seen from a standpoint of, if somebody runs into those poles, kicks those poles, hits them out, that thing's going down. But regardless, if somebody were to get them down, that's a problem.
We need it to be structurally sound in 30 days. That's all we're asking. If we get a structural engineer report saying that the building is now not a dangerous property within 30 days, then you can get your architectural plans and go ahead with the renovation that you have planned.
Mr. Gould, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just going to add that based upon the action that the building department came out and took, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief Leininger, he can't make any improvements to the property. They kind of put a condemnation. Until a structural engineer gets involved that actually comes up with the design and engineering that needs to be done to make the property secure, at his own, to remove his risk. That is the belief that I have, and that's why I was giving him the
He needs a
instructions.
structural engineer anyway.
Yes, he can't just go out there and take action.
Right, so structural engineer
Yes.
needs to look at the property and say, here's what you need to do, make it
Correct.
structurally sound,
Correct.
and then they need to execute that
Yes,
in the next 30 days.
that is exactly correct.
And then get plans to actually do the work. But in the
Correct.
interim, what you can do
Yeah,
is put up security fencing around the perimeter of the property to prevent people from going onto it. Simply putting up plywood and 2x4s on the existing structure itself does nothing, because if I'm standing next to it, right up against that plywood and the building falls over, guess what? I'm still dead. So I need to have fencing around the entire perimeter of the property, like you would see on a construction site, to prevent people from getting in the danger area, period.
Is there anything else you want to provide to the board?
No, I'll follow all the board's recommendations and comply.
so just so we're clear, what we're saying here is in the next 30 days, you're gonna get a structural report, you're gonna make this thing safe, structurally, you're gonna fence it off, and then we'll give you time to get your plans and rebuild it if that's what it's gonna take. But it can't, you gotta move quickly,
It has to be structurally sound.
yeah.
That's all we're asking in the 30-day window.
But first, secure the area.
Secure the property.
Correct.
Secure the
Yeah.
property.
And have a structural engineer get you the parameters of what you need to do to make it a safe property, and then you can go ahead and get your plan to fix it up.
I would recommend that the board go ahead and declare it dangerous, because it is dangerous. I don't think how you can make any other declaration. With that, he gets a 30-day written notice, so he'll have 30 days to do whatever he wants. I would say that, just to let him know going forward, that the board is willing to enter into an agreement to not demolish the property if within, and I would do days, 14 days, he gets us an engineering report saying that it's structurally sound as it is with the remedial actions he's taken, that he secure it with fencing around the perimeter in 7 days, and that we get plans and permits within 60 days if possible.
Well, if we're going to give him 30 days to make it structurally sound, then we have to give him 30, not 14.
No, 30 days is the time period when you will destroy it. There's a legal notice
Right, I
period.
understand, but
But you can make him do different things in between then, and then push back the destruction date.
well, then I'd like to make it like 28 days to get it structurally sound, or in 30 days we'll demolish it, to give him more time. Because the structural engineer is not going to come out tomorrow because we had this meeting tonight.
Yeah.
That's fine.
No, but he can put up fencing to secure it.
Yeah, I would
Well,
say
I know that,
fencing.
but I'm talking about, she said fencing in 7 days,
That's
the
fine.
structural engineer in 28 days, and if in
But we
28
need that
days we don't
report.
have a thing from your engineer saying that it's structurally sound, in 30 days we will demolish it.
If I'm not mistaken, he's already had the structural engineer out there. They just need to write the report. He's already been there.
Well, we
right?
know
Is
it's
that
not
correct?
structurally sound today.
Right.
He needs to
So he
have
needs a
them come in,
report
tell him
written on what to do,
it,
right.
and then
Everything
execute
that
it.
the Springfield Township concerning this property, anytime they send out a notice in a timely manner, we comply. So, I mean, it's not a matter of us not complying, it's just been a miscommunication since this project started.
So the first
Because
motion,
we were aware that we were gonna have a hearing. When I submitted the documents I did, there was not a formal hearing. There was gonna be a discussion of a time frame to complete the project and everything. That's what,
For the board's reference, the hearing notice was posted, the resolution was posted on the property 3/10 of '21. Certified mail was sent out the same day.
Conversations.
No, it says there's a hearing. An ad was run on 3/11 to say that. The legal ad was then posted on the property 3/26. So
so Laura, do we need two separate motions? One for the 7 days and one for the...
I would do a motion, I mean, you can put in that you're going to declare it dangerous, and that we'll enter into an agreement to revisit that 30 days upon the 7 days do it as two motions.
Right.
But
Do
you
I have
need
a
to declare it dangerous first.
No, wait a minute. So you're saying you want to declare it dangerous?
Yes.
Correct.
So just so Mr. Gillum understands that, if we declare it dangerous, at the end of 30 days, nothing's happened, the property will get tore down.
Now that I understand that, I understand.
That's what she's saying.
So, will
Yeah, and
we
then the-
receive this in writing, so he'll have
Yes.
what
We'll
we're...
do a written agreement with him and sign it that these things
Now,
have to
what's
happen.
What's the 7 days?
7 days is to secure it with fencing. 28 days is to get a structural engineer report.
Saying that it's structurally sound.
Yes.
Yeah, or if he has to take some remedial actions, can he do that, or is he prohibited from?
That would be between him,
And the building department.
his engineer and the building department.
I'll call the building department first thing, tomorrow morning, or actually go down there and speak with the supervisor.
Sure.
Because when they originally came out, the building was safe. The city of the county inspector said the building was not gonna fall down anytime soon, when we first met him out there with the Captain Mount Stein. He said, get drawings and come back up here and, go through the process of zoning. So then his supervisor came out, and I guess that's when they put the sticker, but I'll go down there and explain to them, the findings here with the Springfield Township Board of Trustees, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Gilliam.
Ms. Abrams, just for clarification, the condemnation currently in effect was issued by the Hamilton County Building.
Right, I was going to say, the building department, thank you, I was going to say the same thing. It was the building department who made that order, so
All right.
they are not okay with the building, to be
I
clear.
move that the board determine that the property located at 2046 Second Avenue be declared a dangerous property because it is insecure, unsafe, or structurally defective, and that the board authorize township personnel to enforce the previously enacted resolution and remove the dangerous property condition within 30 days after giving the property owner 30 days written notice of the intended removal, demolition of the structures located on the property, which we've done. Now, are you going to write something? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So that motion says he's got 30 days
And
to,
then we're going to talk about the 7 days and the 28 days.
This is just the first of two motions.
okay.
Do we have a second?
I thought she said second.
No,
Oh.
she said,
She motioned. I asked for
Oh, you
motion.
didn't make the motion.
I made the motion. She seconded. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Laura, now, do I?
Do a roll call vote.
We need a vote.
Do a roll
all
call.
in favor?
A roll call.
Oh, need a roll call, okay. Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Honalaw?
Aye.
Mr. Burning?
Aye.
All the trustees agree?
And just do a motion to indicate that if the property owner, and I'll make the motion, you can just say, I'll make the motion, that if the property owner secures the property with a fence around the entire perimeter of the property in 7 days, provides the board with a report from a structural engineer in 28 days indicating that the property is structurally sound and/or can be immediately made structurally sound, the board will postpone the demolition past the 30-day period. And that the expectation is that building permits will be secured as soon as possible, but 60 days is the
Do we have a motion?
guideline.
Laura made the motion.
She
Just-
can't make a motion.
Well, I gave the wording, just so you can say what she said.
I make the motion.
So moved, yeah.
So moved, yes.
Second.
And a roll call vote on that as well.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Honalaw?
Aye.
Mr. Burning?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mr. Gillum, we'll get together with you and put it in writing, and then we'll both sign it so that we can have it be official. But you need to secure the property in 7 days. That's the first step.
So, say everything goes well, we provide everything you guys want, how long will we have to renovate the building and make it occupable?
Once you make the thing structurally sound, then I think you have as much time as you need.
Well,
That's-
the building permits and zoning permits are good for a specified period of time.
Yeah, 1 year.
1 year. So as long as you're actively working on it during the term of which your permits are valid, I think you have that amount of time.
And our goal is just to make it structurally sound. That's what we need to do, like right now. That's why we passed these motions, sir.
But that building's been sitting like that for 7 years. Right?
Well,
No, it's been getting worse.
maybe taking the siding off, I don't know. But at this point, we're at this point. So hopefully you can get those things done in the next 28 days and you guys can move forward with renovating. That would obviously be our first
Yeah.
choice.
Do we have your contact information, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right.
Okay, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. With that, the
Please
public
close.
hearing for 2046 Second Avenue is now closed. The regular trustee meeting will begin in a few minutes.